Now, more than halfway through summer practices, where does Boston College stand? I'm going to give you three takeaways from what we've seen so far.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Eagles Nation. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network, and welcome to today's daily Boston College podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So we are now 10 practices into Boston College's preparation for the beginning of the 2024 season. Today's show, I'm going to give you three takeaways from what we've seen so far at practice through the first 10 practices. I'll tell you about the offense. I'm going to talk about coaching, and I'll give you a little bit about the defense. We'll get into all of that on today's packed episode of Locked On BC. All right, so let's start off. Practice has been going on. What have I seen? What has stood out to me? And the first thing is the coaching staff. The preparation in detail that this coaching staff is implementing and expecting from their team, I feel is going to take Boston College up that next level. It may take a little while, right? You're still playing with Jeff Hafley's roster. Well, you may need some of Bill O'Brien's guys to get in here. But I look at this roster right now. From the beginning when they first took over to now, BC has had 6 months, basically 5 to 6 months to get them prepared. And it starts at the basics, what this coaching staff has done. I've watched Craig Fitzgerald and his strength and conditioning staff push this team to get them into the best physical conditioning that we've seen in a while. I think he's a huge improvement of what you had under Phil Matus. Phil Matus is now with the Steelers, but Craig Fitzgerald, Bill O'Brien called the best strength and conditioning coach that he's ever worked with, or in the country, he said, excuse me. And it was a big deal that Boston College got him. Now, Fitzgerald has had his time with them, right? Practice only started 2 weeks ago, but Fitzgerald worked and trained and conditioned these guys, since June. So they have got themselves in shape. They're going to get themselves so that it will hopefully limit a lot of those injuries that have been a major problem for Boston College football over the last couple of years. You remember the end of the seasons, it seems like you're scraping for depth at all the positions. The hope is this year that you're going to get dings up and you're going to get injuries. It's football, that happens. But the little things that keep guys out of games hopefully will be reduced by Fitzgerald. That's one piece that this coaching staff has already brought in. And you can see it at practice. As I said on an earlier episode, you watched Jeff Hafley's end of practice because the only time you can watch it through like a mirror. And they would do their drills and their end of the practice, rotational type of game situations. And then they'd go right to the huddle, and that would be the end of practice. That is not the case right now with Craig Fitzgerald. They are running, they're doing conditioning sprints, they're doing stretching, they're doing all sorts of things that I think will help keep these guys in the best physical position to make it through the season. Now, the coaching staff themselves, watching them, these guys are particular. Will Lawing was called by, I believe it was Jaden Skeet this week when I was at a press conference. He called him a perfectionist. And that's kind of the overall theme of the way that this staff is. They're all perfectionists. They want the best. And when you're watching them do the drills, when you're watching them run team drills and doing, 7v7 or 11 on 11, they want the best out of everything. There's always something that they can improve on. And you see that from all the way from the top, from Bill O'Brien, all the way down to the positional coaches. And that's going to get the guys to play better because they're learning, they're developing, and they're adding to their toolbox of what makes them good players. I look at Bill O'Brien, and, again, I have to reiterate, Jeff Hafley did not allow the media into the practices, which I thought was a complete waste of people's time. Like, you get to go to a press conference and ask him and get questions answered by him, but you never got to see what was going on other than them stretching at the beginning or doing a few drills, which is not really useful. Now Bill O'Brien has made it open. which I think is a great thing because now we can talk about all the great things that we've seen him do and the things that he does in practice. He is a character, and his style, you can hear him every time from no matter where you are on the field, all practice long. And, you know, watching him practice in the style, he is, you had Jeff Halfley, who was a player's coach. And I imagine coaches work well when teams are playing well. When they're, when they're a 500 team or struggling, like BC had been under Jeff Halfley, players coaches sometimes struggle. They lose games to Northern Illinois and a bad Pitt team. They barely beat UConn. I can go on and on and on. Bill O'Brien is the complete 180 of that. He is not a player's coach at all. I'm sure relationships are important and he has that, but when he's on the field, he is a general. He is Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, that style of coach that if you make a mistake, you're going to hear about it. And you're going to make sure that you don't make that mistake again because he's going to make sure that happens. And that discipline, we didn't see it completely at the scrimmage, but oh man, he made sure that you knew that was not going to happen again. But I feel like that style is going to work really well with the roster that they have, and it should improve BC's play when they get to play, these other teams that they're going to be probably underdogs in most of these games. So that discipline could mean the difference between a mistake that costs them the game and a execution that actually helps the team win. You see this throughout practice. You see this at the scrimmage. They're working to make sure that this team executes at the highest level. Friendships, whatever. They're not there to give you a big pat on the butt all the time and be hunky dory. They want the main goal, and what O'Brien has said, the biggest goal is to win football games. That has been the theme from every press conference that we've been to. They want to win, and that this program needs to win. You heard it yesterday during the scrimmage. If you listen to that press conference, he said there's no reason that Boston College cannot be a winning program again. And so that message has been the theme. When you had Jeff Halfley here, yeah, he said he wanted to win, but you never really heard it like you do now with O'Brien. That emphasis is so clear with him. And I think that culture is exactly what Boston College needs, and it's a big change from what we've heard in the past. Now, in our second segment, I want to talk about another theme that I've noticed, and that has to do with the defense and the improved play there. I'll get into all of that in just a moment. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Now, I want to go to some more Red Sox games. I am going to use Game Time because I hate getting seats where I have to turn 180 to actually watch a baseball game. I know with Game Time, I'm going to see a view from my seat. And if I see that seat's pointing into the green monster, I'm going to look for something else. And you can do that too with the Seat Finder. It's amazing. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKED on college. So Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and thank you for all of you who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen to every day. And if you have not done so already, I want you to check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. He gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is now available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. And I again want to tell you one last quick thing. We have had more signups for the Eagles Nest, and I'm happy. I still have like a couple left. I only have like 2 or 3 promos left where you get 6 months of free Eagles Nest. I send videos, I send chats. I've been talking to a lot of you, and I thank you, each and every one of you out there that has been talking to me about long snappers and the wide receiver room and asking me questions about scrimmages. It's been great, and I hope you guys consider doing it too. Again, it's no obligation. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. It's the Eagles Nest. Details in the description of the show. Now, I want to get into the defense. Tim Lewis was the biggest question mark heading into this season in terms of staff. Like, you didn't know if um, what his situation was going to be. Was he going to be, you know, the most effective coach that you could hope for? And with a defense that struggled so much last season, the only hope that you could have was that he could somehow activate the talent that was there. Well, credit to Jeff Hafley. He helped bring in the back end to make the defense a little better. The secondary got a big shot in the arm with 3 additional transfers with Cameron Martinez, Bryquise Brown, and Ryan Turner. Gosh, I couldn't even think of his name. And they have been performing well at practice. Cameron Martinez, has just been with the team for a little while, and he's starting to really elevate his game. I think he's going to be someone folks are going to really be excited about when he potentially starts or plays at the slot corner position or on special teams. But my next takeaway is that this defense should not have the major problems that we saw last year. Are they the most talented defense you've ever seen? No. Are they going to go back to like 2007 or 2014 where you had really good defenses? Probably not. But will they be the Achilles heel of this team? Will they be a defense that drags down this program? No, they will not. I think what I've seen so far from the combination of I think, pretty good defensive line play between Ezeiruaku, Okpala, Rooks, and Cam Horsley to improve linebacker plays. I think what we've seen so far should mean this defense gets to the next level. When I watched the scrimmage on Wednesday, the defense held its own for most of that game. There were you don't want to say never, but there were only a few chunk plays, and most of them were with the twos. But I think you're going to see them get better, and I caution you, like, they're going to get better, but you're playing Florida State to start the season off, and there's always you're playing on the road where you lost to them 44-14 last time. It could get ugly there. You never know, but it could be a tough game for them. So I wouldn't use that as a barometer of how this defense is. But what I've seen so far, I've seen more pressure on the quarterback, which has been good. I've seen less explosive plays. When they're playing against in scrimmage situations or rotation situational plays, they're where they need to be. And I think they've got some high-end talent guys that I'm really excited to see this season. Cam Horsley, I think folks don't talk about enough, but could really end up being one of the most talented defensive players BC's had in the last couple of years. He's really good. When BC's running the ball, they can't really run it at him because whenever they're doing their runs, it's usually away from where Horsley is, and he's going to make everyone around him better. And that starts with George Rooks. I think George Rooks has played a lot better this year, so far from what I've seen. And then the edges, I cannot speak highly enough about what Ezeiruaku should be able to do this year. I expect him to get much more closer to what we saw in 2022 when he had 8.5 sacks than what we saw last year when he had 2. He's going to be in a position to get more plays. And that all gets back to the style of this defense. The defense is going to be a little bit different. It's much more multi-dimensional, multi-fronts. They're using different guys, and they've got some depth too. They brought up Ced McConnell yesterday as a guy that's been really stepping up. I've seen a lot out of him. Josiah Griffin's had a really good camp. Edwin Kalengi, we're expecting him to play a little bit more. They get these guys in, they're going to be more aggressive, and they don't have to think as much. The big thing I'm getting from these players is, I don't know what it was about Jeff Hafley's defense, but it didn't allow it was a lot of thinking. And when you're thinking on defense, you miss tackles. When you're thinking on defense, guys get by you. When you're playing instinctually and you just know what you got to do and where you got to be, you're going to get those plays done. You're going to get to the quarterback. You're going to stop runs before they become explosives. They're going to be able to do much more of that. And so whatever Tim Lewis is doing is working right now in camp. Again, this is all from what my perspective at camp. They're playing against the other team, themselves. I'm just telling you what I've watched through the first 10 practices. There could be things that I'm missing right now that when they play a Florida State that gets more exposed. But from my perspective from camp, this is what I've seen. So I think the defense is going to be better. The piece about the defense that worries me is the depth. And Bill O'Brien has brought that up multiple times. There's guys that I think if they got hurt would be really negatively impact the play of this defense. Ezeiruaku would be number one. Cam Horsley would be 1A or 1B because the drop off between Ezeiruaku and, either Kalengi or Josiah Griffin is pretty big right now. And it's not fair to Kalengi and Griffin because Ezeiruaku's on year 4 right now. He's been a starter forever. Same thing with Horsley. Horsley's on year 5, I think. And so him to, Nigel Tate or Owen Stodmeyer, or even Quan Williams, that's a big jump. So to lose a guy like those two, or even like Cam Arnold. I know Cam Arnold doesn't get enough talk, but he's a veteran and he's probably the most veteran linebacker that they have, and is going to be so crucial in communication. I believe he's going to be the guy on headset. So they need him. They need him to stay healthy. But you lose those kind of guys. That is what could be what nicks this defense. So again, I'm telling you what I see from the defense right now. I could not tell you what they look like if they lose a couple guys. I would think it would be pretty negatively impacted if they lose a few of these key guys. They have spots where, like if Neto Ekpala went down, I feel like you could get enough out of Josiah Griffin or Edwin Kalenki. If Davion Crouch went down, if Bam Crouch went down, I think you could probably plug in Sione Hala and you'd be all right. The secondary, I think they have some decent depth there. I'm not too worried there. It was just those key positions I feel Boston College could get exposed there. And that's what I've seen. And I think it might be something to watch for going forward. Now, in our final segment, we'll talk about the depth chart, where things are looking, and is there any big controversies coming up? We'll look at all of that in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen. If you want a second listen, go check out Locked On ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs after today's show. Find it on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So let's talk about camp in terms of depth chart, because I think a lot of folks, you get to practice, you're wondering, are there positional battles? Even Bill O'Brien said that there are. And I think that's fair to say at certain positions. There's definitely some positional battles. I look at the wide receiver position right now, and I say that's mostly solidified. You've got Jaden Skeet, Jerron Bradley, and Lewis Bond. But you've got Reed Harris kind of trickling around. He's having a good camp. And what about Jaden McGowan? Could they catch up? That could be something to watch for. Jerron Bradley's been with the twos, but I keep telling everyone, Bradley's with the twos because he's kind of working himself back from something that happened that kept him out of a few practices. The big one that keeps coming up, and I want to credit Kevin Stone. Kevin Stone from Rivals has his own perspective on things, and he keeps wondering if Grayson James is going to, is there a quarterback battle? And Bill O'Brien shot that down. And I think folks are, watching this. Maybe there's a little PTSD from last year when we saw out of nowhere Emmett Morehead lose his job to Castellanos. But again, I say that's close practice. We couldn't see that. But also, now that we can watch it, I don't see this as a battle right now. And Bill O'Brien made that very clear. The difference between Castellanos and Grayson James was very clear to me during the scrimmage. Grayson James made some great throws. He did. But he also got himself hamstrung with a bunch of turnovers. I think he had 3 or 4 of them. You can throw for an ungodly amount of yards, but if you turn the ball over, you're going to lose games. Castellanos, I don't think threw an interception the whole game. He had one that could have been intercepted, but Jaden Skeet ripped it out of whoever's hands it was to prevent it. But 4 mistakes versus 1, it makes it very clear to me Castellanos is going to be the starter. I don't think that's a political answer or anything like that. There's Castellanos as a starter, and he's earned it so far. And he's played well enough. So I think that's that position. And then you look at the secondary, that is my biggest takeaway is there's still a ton of practice to be played, and there's players I think that could be earning their way into the starting rotation. I mentioned Cameron Martinez first of all. He is battling with Kari Johnson right now. Am I sure that And so I think the secondary is going to be a position we're going to be watching for. And that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you all for listening. Join our subtext. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. And thank you all for making Locked On Boston College your first listen. I can't wait to see you all again tomorrow for another episode where we talk more about this upcoming season. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your daily listen. And we'll see you all again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.